Stimați invitați, bine ați venit în a treia zi a Forumului Orașelor Verzi. Dear guests, welcome to the third day of the Green Cities Forum. On your tables you can find the headphones, where you have translation, Channel 1 in Romanian, Channel 2 in English, Channel 3 in French and Channel 4 in Italian. Sper că ați avut primele 2 zile intense. Din ceea ce am reușit să vorbesc cu dumneavoastră, pare că atelierele sunt ceea ce aveam nevoie cu toții, adică timp de a discuta, de a face schimb de experiență, de a ne conecta pentru a putea colabora nu doar acum 3 zile la eveniment, ci pe parcursul anilor care vin, deoarece până acum, cred că concluzia care a reieșit din tot ce s-a întâmplat a fost că împreună suntem mai puternici și sper că sunteți de acord cu mine. Nu mai stau cu multe introduceri pentru că am întârziat un pic și ne cerem scuze pentru acest lucru, dar știți că așa este în Ardeal, mai greu până când își face efectul cafeaua de dimineață și când veniți în Ardeal se simte spiritul și se preia mai departe. Așadar, astăzi suntem onorați să vă avem alături de noi pe un pionier în metavers și a început cercetarea de master pe acest subiect în 2006, utilizând metaversul pentru a dezvolta strategii internaționale pentru universități din întreaga lume. În 2012 a obținut titlul de doctor în utilizarea serviciilor de Twins Digital în metavers, iar acum este un lider de afaceri premiat cu 17 ani de experiență în transformarea ideilor inovatoare în afaceri cu creștere accelerată și impact global. Are o experiență extinsă în colaborarea cu miniștrii, rectori de universități și directori executivi ai companiilor din Top Fortune 500, abordând strategii legate de industrie, inovație și competență. Dr. Cristina Yang Zhang, CEO Metaverse Institute. Welcome to Brașov.
Thanks ever so much for such a wonderful welcome. It's my first time in Romania, and I love this city. It's so green, so beautiful. Everywhere I see, it's like such beautiful landscape. I want to start in my presentation from quoting one of my favorite role models of all times, David Attenborough. And he also talked very passionate about the city and its role in climate change. So he said, now, over half of us live in an urban environment. My home, too, is here in the city of London. Looking down this great metropolis, the ingenuity with which we continue to reshape the surface of our planet is very striking. It is also very sobering and reminds me of just how easy it is for us to lose our connection with the natural world. So there's a lot of things need to be done. And I feel cities can play a major role in that. So how do we do it? This is one of the latest research published in April this year by the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Lausanne. And they looking at all these literature reviews published so far around how can we create environmentally sustainable smart cities and how different technologies all the way from AI, IoT, big data, etc., are converging to allow us to make it happen. But if you have a look, there are quite a wide range of areas where technology are forming to support our sustainable future. Anywhere from like water resources, air pollution, environments, mobility, and how we engage citizens, etc. So it's a lot of hard work. So I don't know how you guys manage. I almost feel like it's like a Mission Impossible. So maybe Tom Cruise had a quite nice, Mission Impossible 7 released recently. Maybe for the next series, he should consider work with mayors and the municipal government worldwide to really address the climate change because it's so challenging and so complex. A little bit about me, as our wonderful host has already mentioned, you can see that I was made in China, reinvented in the UK through wonderful education. So I was very lucky to be educated at Loughborough University, whose media courses has been consistently ranked as #1 in the UK. So there I met a group of world-leading professors who are very much looking at how the new future media is going to come into shape. So that's where I was lucky to discover Second Life, and it's the world's first metaverse platform back in 2006. So as you can see, in some countries, as a happy international student, you pay slightly more tuition fee than the home students. So I consider myself as a happy cash cow because we contribute about £30 billion a year to the British economy, very significant, a major export industry. So I thought, why not do something a little bit adventurous? So I went to my supervisor, and he said, why not try Second Life? Because that's going to be the next biggest thing. So that's how I started. And, but you know, for any kind of technology, if you want to make it work, the technology itself is not good enough unless you find the user case. So the user case I found at that time is education. Because at the same time, when I was in Loughborough University, I think perhaps the second month I arrived in the university, I did manage to convince 1,000 UK students to vote for me as their first international development officer to join the student union, because I feel that the learning on textbooks is not enough. You need to really learn how to deal with people from all kinds of cultural backgrounds, really unite them for common causes. So that's what I did. And then I started a journey which basically assisting the newly appointed Vice Chancellor, Professor Shirley Pearce, to co-design the whole international strategy of the university. But our approach is a little bit different. As you know, lots of strategy is very much top-down all the way to the university, and then to the professors, and then to the students. We adopt a double approach, both top-down all the way down, and I adopt bottom-up. So we were doing how we helping students understand their needs, and then we mobilize them to work closely with their professors, their departments, the university, to really drive the future of the student-centered international strategy. So that's perhaps a little bit similar to a lot of things you are doing here, try to get citizens involved in the daily operation of the strategy. And we were very lucky because we really had a very effective way to get students excited about how the overall strategy is going to benefit them in the years to come. So they get involved. Within 18 months, we initiated a strategy. We were recognized by 3 national awards in the UK as the best international student union of the year. And that was very thrilling. And unfortunately, at the same time, I was doing my full-time PhD, looking at how to use digital twins in the metaverse to simulate and optimize for the construction, engineering, architectural projects, which is the foundation of smart cities. But that was a lot of fun as well. So later I was elected a political representative for about 5 years' time in the UK, representing 1 million international students, sitting on many different intergovernmental committees, and did a lot of lobby work, including the immigration change, against the Home Secretary Theresa May at that time, and did manage to convince her to cancel up to 10 policies out of 40 proposed ones. So we were very lucky and had lots of fun. And then I was China director for about 7 years for QS World University Ranking, where we evaluate hundreds of the world's top universities, advising governments, universities on frontier technologies. So what shall we do looking forward for the whole cities when it comes to sustainable future? I think let's start from something. Can you hear me now, or should I use my microphone? I think we should start from something really basic. If you have a look, everyone knows data is the new oil, but the new oil will really bring value when it is analyzed. So you can see here that worldwide, the data we are experiencing now, it has also an iceberg situation where only 12% of data across any organization on average is analyzed to provide like value, where the rest, nearly like 80% is not analyzed. They're sitting there, consume like large space, and also it's not environmentally friendly when you try to put them cloud or edge, etc. So what can we do to really have much efficient data strategies for municipal governments when it comes to smart city is something we all need to address. And of course, we need to talk about AI because that's the buzzword now. And but again, it's nothing new. So if you have a look here, that the latest discussion about AI, it can trace back all the way to the 1950s. But during the process, it doesn't really achieve like mass adoption. It has like 2 major winters, where maybe the hype is a little bit too high, and so governments start to say, we spend so much money on AI, is that really worth it? So I remember the first winter taking place in the 1970s, and one of the reports was led by a professor. He was commissioned by the parliament in the UK to looking at how effective the investment into AI has really produced tangible outcome, and his conclusion is not yet. And that caused UK government to pull away from AI funding for nearly 7 years. And it happens again in the 1990s. And now, of course, we all see that there is a major breakthrough with generative AI. So what's really interesting at this moment is if you're having a look of Sequoia's latest report, they start to looking at how generative AI is using text to code images, videos, etc., and especially 3D objects to provide more immersive experience at scale, which is quite significant. And we see that's going to happen, perhaps it's going to reach peak to about 2030. So that's very exciting. And I remember yesterday I was sitting next to Alan, our mayors here, and we were talking about actually, he saw a video recently. The American President, Joe Biden, was speaking fluent Romanian and sent greetings to the Romanian people. So, which is quite interesting things. And I was wondering, actually, we all know how, busy our mayors are. So maybe in the future, we can use generative AI to have your virtual applica to speak to your citizens on a daily basis. Because I noticed for every single city, they will have a mailbox which goes directly to the mayors. But in the future, why not use generative AI to create maybe the virtual Alan? Is Alan here somewhere? Hello, Alan. So maybe you can try to use generative AI to create the virtual Alan and speak to every single citizens in. I think that will make you very popular and easily nail the next election, which are going to take place next year. And I guess that's going to apply to many other mayors who are attending here today. So why not? So that can be quite interesting. This is another very significant piece of research. Is basically published by Nature. And what they have been looking at is, as you can see, they reviewed all the different global experts who have been researching on how AI can impact on UN Sustainable Development Goals in all the previous decades. And their research found out that actually AI has the potential to bring more positive impacts than threats. So out of all the 100 plus targets, about 79% of the UN SDG target can be enhanced through AI, while the rest, I would say 20%, will cause issues, especially on ethics, data securities, etc. So that needs to be addressed through regulatory framework, which a lot of government has already been looking into that. So I think the picture is still quite positive. BCG proposed a very interesting framework to use AI to combat climate change all the way from mitigation to adoption to resilience and fundamentals. I will suggest you have a look. It's very useful. Another key areas I think a lot of cities have already started to use is actually on digital twin. I want to talk about it in different facets here. A lot of digital twins taking place on the city level, But an emerging trend is start to looking at how digital twin can be used for citizens. So this chart is produced by Tata Consulting, basically looking at how digital twin can create like a more direct impact for the citizens' well-being and health on a daily basis. They can use like a different like twin technology to see how they should live a more responsible, ethical life that will bring benefits to their own like health and look much younger, or maybe become more environmentally friendly. So I think for any mayors who are working really hard to try to suggest their citizens to use less cars or eat less beef or delicious food, maybe that can be a solution forward, because I think when you try to let your citizen clearly see how their daily action, especially consumption, whether it's clothes, food, public transport, is going to have an impact on their own well-being health, as well as their cities, that will help to bridge the strategy from the top all the way to the bottom. And of course, there has been lots of research looking at how digital twin is actually really bring tangible like carbon emission reduction at scale, especially in the built environments. So this piece of research is conducted by EY, and according to their latest finding, actually up to 50% of carbon footprint in the built environment can be reduced as a result of adopting digital twin related technology, quite significant. And if we want to look at much bigger scale, if we use digital twin to simulate the whole Earth, and there are significant benefits. So there are two major projects going on at this moment. One is by the European Commission. So they put in a large amount of funding to looking at how digital twin can simulate the climate change in different parts of Europe and allows mitigation to come in place effectively. Another area is led by the private sector, NVIDIA. So they have Earth-2 now, using super powerful, high-performance computing to actually generate the image of how different parts of, especially rising sea levels, how should we do that, in lots of different parts of cities, and how we can all get scientists, governments, business involved to try to develop different scenarios to tackle climate change. So I think digital twin is another area which has proved very effective in fighting climate change. And of course, all the above things we're talking about is requiring huge amounts of data. I remember the leader from Intel gave a very interesting speech 2 years ago. And he was saying that to unleash the full potential of the metaverse, we need at least another 1,000 times computing power. And we don't have that power yet. So how can we solve it? Of course, there are lots of different high-performance computing like technology being developed. And perhaps the one which gets the most attention is quantum computing. As you can see, last year's Nobel Prize winner goes to 3 scientists who are working on quantum entanglement, which are a very important part of quantum technology. And the very interesting thing is, I remember in 2019, Google made a major announcement basically saying they have achieved quantum supremacy. What that means is basically they have developed a quantum computer which can run, I think, more than 100 million times faster than any existing computer we have got. So that's like a really, really amazing. Imagine how that's going to transform all the many different things we're talking about: AI, digital twins, metaverse, and IoT. That's going to be very, very powerful. But the issue is, how can we really utilize that for climate change? So actually, one of the most prominent areas quantum technology can really support is for SDG 7. Affordable and clean energy. That's going to be a massive boost in that area. Let's also talking about environment impact of the different technology we'll talk about. This one is really interesting. It was conducted by the University of Massachusetts. So AI is such a beautiful thing we can utilize to support our environments and our future society. But at the same time, training AI is not that environmentally friendly. So it can produce the carbon dioxide 5 times more than the lifetime emission of the American car or 300 round-trip flights between San Francisco and New York. So we need to make a balance. And how do we do it? There are already some really interesting solutions here. On the energy side, perhaps some of the most major scientific breakthrough since last year is nuclear fusion. And recently, you probably see the news that the Lawrence State Lab in the American has again conducted a second experiment to confirm this area can work. But the issue is, this is news published by FT yesterday. So they're looking at how all the many different countries around the world, Canada, China, US, EU, Germany, etc., they are all putting huge amount of investments in nuclear fusion to really generate the clean energies we want for the future. But maybe it will take a little bit time for really supply that to national grids in different parts of the world. And the estimate at will be 2030. So we need a little bit more time to get that done. So maybe in between, hydrogen and other clean energy can help to address the mobilities and energy situation in our cities. But the future is very bright indeed. This is quite fascinating. I think it's a little bit blue sky thinking, almost like science fiction. So recently, Nature published an academic article talking about some major breakthrough led by Microsoft and a group of universities in China, US, EU, etc. So basically, they start to looking at how to use synthetic DNA to store data. And they actually have done that multiple times successfully. So we can put the digital data into the synthetic DNA and then extract it back. So let's imagine if we can use these technologies in the next 5-10 years, according to the leading scientists in this university. That can completely change the global landscape. We are not going to worry about any data center crisis anymore. This is going to be very, very exciting time ahead. Another thing which I find also quite fascinating is taking place both in the EU and the United States. So basically, the European Commission has put in a large number of fundings to looking at how we can actually put data center in the outer space, because we all know it's extremely cold there and there's no air, so it's perfect for data center, because data center creates so much energy. We always need to figure out how to ensure it's keeping cool, and the space is perfect. And they are working with a group of companies and countries to develop solution on that. On the other side, in the United States, there are a company called Lone Star Data Holding. They recently complete a $5 million funding to actually try to send the world's first data center into the moon. That sounds a little bit too scientific, far-reaching, but it's actually happening. They are planning to do it by end of this year. So that's another area we can really address all the many different, energy issues we are facing now. We're very delighted to working with Tampere Municipal Government to launch the world's first people-centered metaverse strategy, Tampere Metaverse Vision 2040. And some of the things we develop is really looking at how you have efficient governance all the way from the municipal government to the national government to EU to the UN, looking at data, IoT, AI, and all the different components that a smart city development will involve. And as you can see, we need not only legal framework, we need IT framework to put everything together. But the most important thing is perhaps how we can ensure the well-being and happiness of people is at everything we are doing. So if we can, I think the challenge is a lot of time we find it's difficult to engage our citizens. It's because they might feel whatever is decided at the municipal level or national level can be a little bit too far away from them. They don't really have the tools to get involved. So for example, I recently received a consultation from my borough in London, and they said we're planning to build some new high-rise in the next 5 years around Hampstead Heath area, which is a very beautiful area with lots of trees. So I was not terribly happy because I feel that could potentially really damage the natural beauty of such a pleasant and family-friendly living areas. So how can I get involved to voice my concern? A lot of government use surveys or telephone interviews, etc. But we all know people are very busy and they don't really like this kind of cold interaction. But imagine we can simulate all of those in the metaverse, and then they can come in and maybe use mobile phone to submit their feedback directly, and then you can see how all the many hundreds or thousands or millions of data coming together in 3D visualization to allow the citizen to see their joint decision can actually be visualized and have a major impact, presented well to the mayor or to the national government. That will be tremendously powerful. Because a lot of time people want to get involved, but they don't have the tool. So if we can create the tool, whether it's AI or IoT, metaverse, digital twins, etc., they can start to contribute and they can feel that their voice, definitely can make a difference. I give you another example which I feel really, really passionate. A lot of people think the climate change really lies on the responsibilities of big corporations, big governments. They can't really play a part. Imagine we can figure out a way, maybe use digital twins to allow every single citizen to monitor their daily consumption. And if each of us try to reduce our carbon footprint by 20% every day, and how that's going to be visualized in 3D, both in their own mobile phones or in the central data warehouse of the city, of the national government, and how that's going to impact on the city's temperature or the country's temperature in the years to come, even by 0.5%, let's say, in the next 5 years. That's great achievement. They feel that they can be part of it. They can really make a difference. But that's missing at this moment. So maybe that's something we can start to think, how we can use such a wide range of tools to allow our citizens to engage in a way they understand, not just beautiful, policy papers. Maybe it can be a gamified experience. They can play, they can win a prize. Maybe that can be linked to their own personal tax or corporation tax. If you are environmentally friendly enough, you can have a tax return, etc. I think there are lots of things we can play around that space. So that's really important. We need to have both a top-down and a bottom-up. And the bottom-up is about empowerment, to allow them to understand how everything works and what they contribute can really make an impact. And then we can have really happy people. Why not? Drop down. And all the mayors who are in today will get elected. Why not? So I'm currently leading on a major piece of work in the United Nations International Telecommunication Union's working group. So one is about sustainability, accessibility, and inclusion. Because we know 1/3 of the global population, about 3 billion of them, are still offline. So we can't just, celebrate all the many different advancements of technologies we talk about today and forget about them. So how can we do to address that? We are in the process of launching a major ITU survey, which are going to be distributed internationally, looking at how we can address the digital divide, diversity, inclusion in the digital space. So once that's distributed, I will really appreciate your support, getting your relevant expert filling that, and then we are going to use that survey's result to compile a technical report for setting up international standard about how metaverse can be really utilized for the benefits of all people. Another area I'm leading on at this moment is as a co-chairman for the ITU task group on Cityverse. So we would love to work with mayors, governments worldwide to looking at how cities worldwide can use a whole range of technologies within the metaverse environment to develop a sustainable, inclusive, and prosperous city of the future. So we have the working group set up. My co-chairman is the lady who is leading the EU funding for Cityverse, which is going on at this moment. Some of you know it's a lot of money they are trying to calling for, and the deadline is November this year. So if you are interested, please do get involved, because we need to get it right. I don't know about you. I feel like every places I visited in summer now is getting so hot. I feel like I'm barbecued. Everywhere I go, I can't escape. It's terrifying. Although I'm a big fan of Chinese food, especially like steamed dumplings, I don't want to be the steamed dumplings in the bamboo case in the future. And I don't think any of our children or grandchildren would like a future like that. So maybe sometimes we're coming together to do it. And I want to conclude my speech by, again, quoting David Attenborough, because I think he's doing such a wonderful job, and I love him a lot. He said, "If working apart, we are force powerful to destabilize our planet. Surely, working together, we are powerful enough to save it. In my lifetime, I have witnessed a terrible decline, but in yours, you could and should witness a wonderful victory. And let's do it together, and let's do it now." Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zhang, so much. I'd like to know if there are any questions. We are a little bit over the time, but we can take one or two questions. If you think about it, I have one question. How do you see the future? In 50 years, how do you think the world will look like?
50 or 15?
15.
Oh, challenging. I think I'm a very pragmatic person, so I like to go back and see what our target. I mean, a lot of people say that we are not going to achieve UN SDG by 2030. It's very, very hard based on our current progress. But personally, I feel if we give everyone, every single one of the 8 billion population in the world to make a difference through different technologies we have now, we can still make it. But we need to do it now, and we need to do it together. And we need to ensure we work with people we don't agree on many different things, but we absolutely all have to agree and take actions on climate change now, and we can make it happen. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Please enjoy this conference and all these days and connect with all these wonderful people. And now we go to our next session. Aș vrea să discutăm acum, după această sesiune în care am fost inspirați puțin să vedem viitorul. Eu cu siguranță am reușit să mi-l imaginez puțin mai bine. Să vedem care sunt concluziile și ce inspirații ați găsit dumneavoastră în workshopurile de ieri. Așadar o să invit pe rând câte un reprezentant de la cele 8 workshopuri care au avut loc, 7 aici și unul la Katia. Vreau doar să spun că aceste ateliere au fost posibile pentru că am reușit să avem niște parteneriate foarte puternice anul acesta. Și cred că aici este cheia pentru organizarea unor evenimente care să aibă cu adevărat valoare pentru cei care participă. De exemplu, The Covenant of Mayors și The Green Cities Accord, cei care au fost facilitatorii grupului de lucru al primarilor și al viceprimarilor. O să vă spun câteva cuvinte despre ei. The EU Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy is an initiative supported by the European Commission, bringing together thousands of local governments that want to secure a better future for their citizens. By joining the initiative, they voluntarily commit to implementing EU climate and energy objectives. And the Green City Accord is a movement of European mayors committed to making cities cleaner and healthier. It aims to improve the quality of life for all Europeans and accelerate the implementation of relevant EU environmental laws. Brașovul este parte din aceste două rețele, iar acum îl invit pe domnul Florian Becker, Project Manager la The Green City Accord, să ne împărtășească foarte pe scurt câteva concluzii ale workshop-ului dedicat primarilor și viceprimarilor. Este aici? Este aici. Hello, Mr. Becker.
Everybody. I'd like to give you a short summary of the session we hosted yesterday on with the mayors. So we had a workshop which discussed concepts in the morning and policies in the afternoon, including a showcase of the policies implemented by our host city of Brașov. We all agree that mayors are at the forefront when it comes to dealing with climate change, and that the local level is the best place to engage with the citizens, and in that case making use of European city initiatives such as the Covenant of Mayors and the Green City Accord. A few key takeaways from our discussion with the mayors. For example, we have learned that there's actually a lack of expertise and ability to read data collected by the cities to actually determine, when you look at the data, in which way you would implement your policies related to it. We learned that there is a lack of expertise when it comes to that there's issues about ensuring proper staffing of public service, and of course the related financial resources of cities. We found out that consistent public urban planning is necessary to ensure that public policies go well along with private investors and private land use. We heard about examples of multi-level governance, so it's very great if you as a city implement a certain project, but if your neighboring communities are going in the opposite way, it needs, of course, coordination. And overall, for the situation in Romania, we learned that there's an urgent need for reform of the different administrative levels. We, as the facilitators coming from different European associations, we will take back all that feedback and feed it into discussion for all issues which are decided on the Brussels level. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. În România există aproape 700 de administratori publici la nivelul consiliilor județene, orașelor și comunelor, care aduc în fiecare zi valoare adăugată oamenilor din comunitățile unde activează. Asociația Administratorilor Publici din România a fost înființată în iulie 2011 și până în prezent din aceasta fac parte peste 70 de city manageri. Această asociație a fost cea care a fost facilitatorul workshop-ului dedicat city managerilor și îl invit pe domnul Dacian Paladi, fost city manager la Oradea, actual consilier al primarului, să ne împărtășească din experiența pe care au avut-o ieri.
Bună ziua, da, în câteva cuvinte, cu mare drag vă împărtășesc câteva din chestiunile care le-am observat, care le-am înțeles mai mult sau mai puțin pe parcursul acestor zile de lucru. Prima dintre ele este că avem în România, evident, o categorie de funcționari din ce în ce mai vizibilă, și mă refer la funcționarii din cadrul primăriilor sau consiliilor județene, care s-au hotărât mai clar și mai evident decât alții să muncească pentru a atrage banii europeni destinați și subiectelor de mediu și de climă. Rațiunile pentru care fac acest lucru sunt diverse, au legătură parte dintre ele cu păstrarea puterii celor în slujba cărora servesc, dar în același timp cu bucurie constat că printre acești funcționari există și o parte care s-au contaminat la nivelul sănătos cu ceea ce înseamnă preocuparea speciei umane pentru mediu și climă. Mă îngrijorează în același timp faptul că atunci când se vorbește de mediu și de climă, se folosesc niște tipare și niște tabuuri care se prezumă a fi absolute 100% și care se prezumă a fi absolute 100%. Mă îngrijorează faptul că nu există gândire critică pe subiectul mediului și a climei la nivel național și internațional și mă îngrijorează faptul că pare că toți suntem de acord. Există o vorbă care spune, atunci când toți gândesc la fel, nimeni nu mai gândește. Există o uniformitate în ceea ce privește preocuparea funcționarilor pentru a stăpâni cât mai bine ghidurile scrise de alții și pentru a încerca să câștige programe. Și chestiunea asta este bună, într-o mare măsură, pentru că suntem încă suficienți de săraci ca să ne putem permite a ne ocupa pe banii proprii pe subiecte de mediu și climă. Nu avem acești bani, dar în orice caz, orice câștig în a atrage banii europeni, chiar și pentru mediu și climă, este ceva mai mult decât puținul sau nimicul pe care îl putem genera singuri. Din păcate am constatat că în subiectul mediului și a climei, România nu are nici actualitatea și nici perspectiva de a fi un fel sau altul un trendsetter. România copiază formule și idei, copiază tehnologii, preia tehnologii pe care le plătește de regulă tot cu bani europeni. Avem o problemă nu la scrierea a proiectelor și la aprobarea lor, ci avem probleme majore la implementarea lor și avem griji foarte serioase la ceea ce înseamnă menținerea proiectelor după ce ele vor fi realizate. Dacă să poți face toate lucrurile astea, ai nevoie de profesioniști, de oameni care să știe carte, care să fie racordate la curentele internaționale de educație, cunoaștere și cercetare. Iar dacă este să vorbesc de acest subiect, în partea de cercetare, în România este sublimă, dar lipsește cu desăvârșire, inclusiv în domeniul mediului și a climei. Lipsește, din păcate, o strategie națională suficient de bine construită și coerentă pentru a încerca să vadă în ce măsură capabilitățile noastre umane, interioare și externe, prin migrația pe care o avem, ar putea să ne aducă anumite foloase cât privesc construcția politicilor naționale. Altcumva, e mult mai bine decât în urmă cu un an, 2 sau 3. Pornim de suficient de jos, astfel încât fiecare proiect scris să fie un câștig. Dar acest lucru nu este un capăt de drum. Este doar începutul unui drum pe care doar timpul ne va arăta dacă am ajuns să-l jucăm inteligent și, într-adevăr, să folosească pentru ceea ce înseamnă speranța de mai bine a fiecăruia dintre noi. Onorat de prezența la acest eveniment, tare mulțumitor Brașovului, Nicoletei, domnului primar și întregii echipe pentru modul în care ne-ați găzduit. Sperăm să găsim rațiuni și foloase să ne întâlnim cu speranță și de acum înainte. Vă mulțumesc!
Mulțumim și vă mai așteptăm. Am fost foarte onorați să avem Comisia Europeană drept partener la Forumul Orașelor Verzi, prin proiectul Construim Europa împreună cu consilierii locali. Astfel, Comisia Europeană a fost facilitatorul grupului de lucru dedicat consilierilor locali și îl invit în acest sens pe domnul George Boroda, consilier local al municipiului Brașov, să ne spună cum a fost.
Mulțumesc. Pot să vă spun că a fost minunat. Chiar mi-a plăcut foarte mult să particip la acest workshop și am aflat cu bucurie că putem avea colaborare și transpartinică, colaborare de calitate și fără să avem disensiuni. Cel puțin În momentul în care avem proiecte comune, astea ne vor uni și în final vom câștiga cu toții, inclusiv comunitatea pe care o reprezentăm. Într-adevăr, sunt anumite probleme pe care și consilierii și le pun și ar dori mai mult o îmbunătățire a colaborării cu aparatul administrativ, ceea ce știm cu toții nu funcționează chiar la capacitate maximă atunci când trebuie. Am discutat despre cum putem implica mai mult cetățenii în deciziile pe care le luăm și am discutat foarte mult despre exemple, iar două dintre exemplele cele mai importante este exemplul Gorița și exemplul plaja Corbu, ambele zone protejate și zone salvate de către cetățeni cu ajutorul implicării politice, evident. Nu în ultimul rând, pot să spun că am determinat faptul că suntem mediatori în comunitățile noastre și încercăm să găsim soluții la toate problemele cu care comunitățile se confruntă. Și ne dorim foarte mult să fim mai aproape de ei și iată, poate cu uneltele necesare să ne și conectăm foarte ușor cu comunitatea. Aceste unelte digitale de care se vorbea un pic mai devreme. Cam asta ar fi concluziile și noi așteptăm cu nerăbdare noi evenimente de acest gen și sperăm să ne unim cât mai mulți consilieri și să găsim acea înțelepciune care să ne ducă la nivelul următor, comunitățile noastre. Mulțumesc!
Mulțumim frumos! Ne-am dorit să avem, după cum spuneam, și workshop-uri pentru funcționarii publici. Ne-am orientat pe câteva categorii, deși sigur ar fi fost și altele pe care ar fi trebuit să le adresăm și poate în anii următori vom reuși. Cu siguranță planificarea urbană este acel domeniu care determină azi cum va fi calitatea vieții noastre peste 10 ani, peste 20 de ani, poate și peste 50 de ani. De aceea am găsit doi parteneri extraordinari pentru atelierul de planificare urbană, respectiv Urbanize Hub și European Urban Initiative. Urbanize Hub este o comunitate de oameni pasionați și implicați cu expertiză variată, oameni care vor să schimbe fața orașelor într-un mod smart și sustenabil. Proiectul este un startup mix între think tank și antreprenoriat, ce dezvoltă acțiuni pe mai multe domenii legate de politice publice, educație, inovație, dezvoltare urbană, sustenabilitate și smart cities. And the overall objectives of the European Urban Initiative are to strengthen integrated and participatory approaches to sustainable urban development and to provide a stronger link to EU policies and to cohesion policy and investments in urban areas. Aș vrea să o invit pe doamna Diana Dobrin, facilitator procese participative la Urbanize Hub, să ne împărtășească din experiența pe care au avut-o ieri. În afară de workshop, au avut și o vizită la o fostă fabrică, Rulmentul, care sperăm să devină în anii următori un exemplu de regenerare urbană.
Super, mulțumesc frumos! Bună ziua! Da, atelierul nostru de ieri pe partea de planificare urbană a fost un pic diferit, aș vrea să zic. A fost mult mai interactiv și a fost foarte mult despre conexiuni. Conexiuni între oameni, între subiecte și mă bucur cumva că prima parte de dimineață, cel puțin, s-a simțit așa cum una dintre participante ne-a spus, ca un pic de terapie de grup, terapie urbană, care pare că a fost destul de necesară ca oamenii să discute, să conecteze și să învețe unii de la alții, poate într-un spațiu pe care de obicei nu îl aveam. Atelierul nostru pe partea de planificare urbană, de fapt, s-a concentrat pe ideea de metode colaborative, de participare în procesele de planificare urbană, de dezvoltare urbană, iar participanții pe care am avut de la arhitecți șefi, urbaniști, consilieri locali și nu numai, au fost îndeajuns de curajoși, să zic, să pornească cu noi într-un proces destul de interactiv, în care am discutat foarte mult despre beneficii, despre experiențele lor cu partea aceasta de metode participative și poate, deși mulți dintre ei sunt fie la început, fie pentru ei este o noutate, fie câțiva dintre ei sunt în stagiile incipiente ale aplicării metodelor participative în partea de dezvoltare urbană, au fost foarte deschiși să împărtășească din experiența lor. Am vorbit despre proiecte, despre tipuri de metode colaborative, despre metode de a consulta comunitățile, de a vorbi cu experți, de a utiliza toate aceste metode ca bază pentru fundamentarea diferitelor studii sau decizii sau proiecte de legi. Și alături de colegii mei, de Grațian Mihailescu de la Urbanize Hub, am vorbit și noi un pic despre diferitele tipuri de proiecte pe care le-am făcut la Urbanize Hub, despre cum poți practic să pui la bază aceste metode participative în întreg procesul de dezvoltare și am dat exemplul proiectului Parcul Liniei din sectorul 6, care a fost foarte mult un proces participativ. Iar în urma dimineții, practic, cu ce am rămas noi e că lumea este într-adevăr dornică și implicată și își dorește procese colaborative. Oamenii au simțit că nu sunt singuri, că există această putere de a veni împreună și după amiază l-am avut pe Alexandru Matei de la European Urban Initiative, cum a zis și Nicoleta, care ne-a arătat practic cum toate aceste oportunități de finanțare europene, pe lângă faptul că se ancorează și se bazează foarte mult pe ideea de participare comunitară și publică, sunt practic niște metode foarte bune de a face primul pas către niște proiecte care sunt mult mai deschise și gândite într-un mod mult mai colaborativ. Iar vizita de după amiază la platforma Rulmentul, practic, ne-a pus un pic mintea la treabă despre cum am putea să folosim aceste tipuri de participare publică într-un proiect care pare că are un potențial foarte mare în Brașov.
Mulțumim! Bineînțeles că, așa cum s-a spus de mai multe ori de-a lungul acestor zile, avem nevoie de bani și, din fericire, Uniunea Europeană îi pune la dispoziție pentru noi. Trebuie doar să învățăm, să știm cum să-i accesăm și apoi cum să implementăm proiectele. De aceea nu putea să lipsească un workshop pe green funding. I-am avut alături de noi pe cei de la Asociația Centru pentru Dezvoltare Durabilă, o echipă de oameni dedicați performanței încă din 2007, care perseverează în a oferi un pachet complet de servicii privind implementarea finanțărilor nerambursabile în România. Probabil îi știți mai simplu dacă vă spun de fonduristructurale.ro, ei sunt. Tot ei sunt organizatorii evenimentului Consolidate, un eveniment care se întâmplă tot la Brașov, anul acesta a doua ediție, în septembrie, 22-24 septembrie, un eveniment care prezintă soluții pentru un viitor sustenabil și digital. Este tot despre sustenabilitate, dar cu un focus mult mai mare pe zona de tehnologie. Și aș vrea să o invit acum pe una dintre participantele de la workshopul de ieri, respectiv doamna Lavinia Boian, șef birou investiții la Primăria Întorsura Buzăului. Până când ajunge doamna Boian, vă invit să intrați pe consolid8.ro și să vedeți ce speakeri interesanți vor veni la Brașov peste doar 2 săptămâni. Bună ziua, doamna Boian! Bine ați venit!
Bună ziua! Bine v-am găsit! Stimați colegi, stimată audiență, numele meu este Boian Lavinia, așa cum am fost prezentată, sunt șef birou investiții la Primăria Orașului Întorsura Buzăului, din județul Covasna și reprezint acea categorie profesională a furnicuțelor care chiar se ocupă de implementarea proiectelor. M-am gândit să compar un proiect cu o piramidă, ca fiind un edificiu monumental pe pereții cărora nu ne găsim numele, dar la construcția căruia am contribuit și noi. Din punctul meu de vedere, informațiile prezentate și discuțiile generate pe marginea acestora în cadrul acestui workshop și-au atins scopul, deoarece au fost abordate teme de interes, precum oportunitățile de finanțare nerambursabilă, atât cele dedicate mediului public, cât și celui privat, veșnica problema banilor, iar concret au fost prezentate programele operaționale, diferitele faze în care se află acestea, că știm că POR-ul 2021-2027 acum are ghiduri în consultare publică sau recent deschise. De asemenea, se închide POR-ul trecut, tot până la finele acestui an. Pentru că în cadrul atelierului am avut colegi și cu mai puțină experiență sau chiar nou veniți în branșă, m-am gândit să spun că fondurile acestea europene reprezintă resursele financiare puse la dispoziție de Uniune pentru a sprijini dezvoltarea economică, socială și regională a statelor membre, iar scopul lor este tocmai de a reduce disparitățile economice și sociale și de a promova coeziunea în interiorul Uniunii. Pentru cei hârjiți, între ghilimele, în acest domeniu, știm cu toții că aceste fonduri pot fi comparate cu un fel de Fata Morgana, care aleargă într-un bolid de curse și se oprește din când în când la câte un semafor, iar dacă reușim să ne urcăm, constatăm de fapt că nu este nici Fata Morgana și la final trebuie să plătim și cursa. Cum fiecare dintre noi știe că printr-o muncă asiduă și, deși la început atractivitatea și visul este foarte mare, pe parcursul implementării ne ciocnim de foarte multe provocări, fiind limitați și de resursele umane, atât ca număr, cât și ca experiență și expertiză profesională. Ce mai vreau să spun e că suntem într-o perioadă în care oportunitățile financiare ies pe bandă, avem ghiduri astăzi în consultare, mâine deschise cu deadline-uri. Suntem tentați să accesăm tot ce se poate și, din punctul meu de vedere, suntem mai mult setați pe cantitate decât pe calitate, ceea ce este un minus, dar există și o presiune, oarecare presiune pe aparatul de specialitate din primării pentru a absorbi cât mai mult, neținând cont de capacitatea ulterioară de implementare sau neținându-se cont. Din fericire, piața mai oferă și consultanți. Știm că mare parte din munca acestora, de fapt, se bazează tot pe informațiile celor din aparatul de specialitate, dar finanțatorii ne-au ajutat incluzând în anumite ghiduri, ca și cheltuieli, pe lista cheltuielilor eligibile, aceste cheltuieli de consultanță. Tot în cursul zilei de ieri, de o atenție deosebită s-a bucurat prezentarea programului de finanțare Horizon Europe, care este programul cadru al Uniunii. Este un program dedicat cercetării și inovării în perioada 2021-2027. Ce își propune? Acest program își propune să sprijine cercetarea științifică și inovarea în Europa pentru a aborda provocările majore ale economiei europene. Unul dintre obiectivele acestui program, pentru că, de fapt, tema acestui workshop a fost promovarea energiei verzi, promovarea, dezvoltarea orașelor verzi, se referă la schimbările climatice, sănătate publică, securitate alimentară, evident, prin intermediul cercetării și inovării. Am considerat deosebit de utilă intervenția doamnei expert pe achiziții publice, care a răspuns documentat întrebărilor care au venit din sală. De asemenea, salutară a fost intervenția celor de la Banca Transilvania, care, surprinzător, au început să aibă credite dedicate pe energie verde și oferă oportunități de finanțare inclusiv autorităților publice, pentru aceste proiecte. De regulă, la aceste conferințe s-a constatat că mai multe idei apar în pauzele de cafea decât în cadrul dezbaterilor. Contrar, aici am încălcat regula. Discuțiile au fost libere atât în timpul prezentărilor, de multe ori întrerupând destul de agresiv speakerii și abuzând de bunăvoința acestora. Mulțumim organizatorilor pentru cadrul oferit, care a permis un transfer de informații atât la nivel formal cât și la nivel informal.
Noi?
Și mulțumim!
Mulțumim și noi. Este genul de feedback care este miere pentru sufletul nostru. Îi invit pe Ian Turner de la Energy Cities și pe Lea Mihailă de la Agenția pentru Managementul Energiei și Protecția Mediului Brașov, ei fiind facilitatorii workshopului de Climate Mitigation, cel mai popular workshop. Am avut cei mai mulți înscriși la acest workshop. Subiectul este unul arzător, după cum spunea Lea. Energy Cities is a network of cities of several hundred local authority representatives from 30 countries, and the network gathers frontrunners and energy transition beginners, city officials and technical experts. Iar ABM este agenția noastră locală de management energetic, înființată încă din anul 2003. Practic ei sunt experții noștri pe energie, parteneri în fiecare eveniment și pentru fiecare proiect care are legătură cu energia. Bine ați venit, vă rog!
Excellent. Thanks a lot. So it would have been great if ChatGPT could have organized my presentation today, because my brain's not really great in the mornings. But so I've got a couple of notes. So yesterday was a great opportunity for us, where you've heard of the word piggybacking. So I work on a project called Scale 2030-50, Horizon 2020 project, and within this project, we've been working on getting community energy, building community energy, and community energy and municipalities working together. And so this was an ideal opportunity to get a lot of Romanian cities together, and also to get a couple of cities outside of Romania. So we're pretty happy. We got in 10 Romanian cities and 3 European cities. And then, of course, we brought in a bunch of other people outside from our partners. So ResCop EU, who worked together with us on the project. We got an Energy Simon. And then via the fact that I've been working in energy cities for a while, you get to meet people. Eventually, we ended up creating a good, fun ambiance, as the French would say. So, honestly, the outcomes, because it was mostly done in Romanian, I can't really tell you all the details, and that's why we have Leah to give that overview. So for me, it was great fun, and I got the feedback from people that, because we'd created a lot of interactive sessions with different tools, we did like a bit of mapping, so we got a map of a neighborhood of Brashov, and we had a look at it to see, okay, which are the different assets that we can potentially use to create projects. And then we said, oh, well, if we have a project, we need to do a bit of stakeholder analysis. So then same thing, we did a bit of working. So over to Leah to give a little bit of her impressions of how it went.
Thank you, and because I would like also Ian to know what were the conclusions yesterday, I'm going to speak in English, because we also have interpreters and the translation is very good, and because it's an international event, even if we call it the best event in Romania. So it was difficult to hear yesterday that we do have legislation for energy communities, but it's only the facade. We do not have a secondary legislation, which prevents us from really implementing the concept. It was also difficult to hear that there are so many member states that do implement it quite successfully. And there are so many ideas in renewable energy sources, energy efficiency, cooperation that can be implemented, and we are stuck. We have so many funds, but none allocated to energy communities, to this wonderful concept that could bring, as we all want, local authorities, private sector, and citizens, because this is the most essential resource, I would say, the citizens. Local authorities do what they need to do. Private sector also does it. But where do citizens come? They also want to contribute. And the exercises that were presented really brought the local authorities in the room to see what the great potential and opportunities are there. And we're keen, together with the stakeholders that we've had yesterday, to move forward to improve the legislation. It is what we have to do for the future. We have to go together in this very fight for climate changes and to reach climate neutrality. It's a lot to say of what we've done yesterday, and it's just scratching the ice because there are so many other things that we need to go into. But I think Romania, it's in a very special moment where it knows where it has to go and where it knows what it has to do. And since we are all at the same table, it's going to go great. We do not have another opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Trebuia, bineînțeles, să avem un workshop despre digitalizare. De aceea, partenerii noștri de la Asociația Română pentru Smart City s-au alăturat și au organizat un workshop pe această temă, pe care, evident, nu este suficient un workshop, e nevoie de conferințe întregi și multe workshop-uri practice, dar cum am încercat să avem câte un pic din fiecare, am avut totuși un workshop dedicat ieri, o zi întreagă. O invit pe doamna Gabriela Vlad, IT director de IT la Primăria Brașov, care a fost participant în cadrul acestui atelier, și pe Eduard Dumitrașcu, președinte al Asociației Române pentru Smart City, să ne împărtășească experiența de ieri.
Aici este o muncă de echipă, prin urmare a trebuit să venim împreună să susținem concluziile workshopului de ieri. În primul rând, mulțumim frumos pentru invitație și parteneriat. Nicoleta, absolut fantastic ce ați reușit să faceți și în acest an la Brașov. Într-adevăr, cel mai important eveniment de mediu din România și cred că toată lumea ar trebui să vă aplaude pentru ceea ce ați făcut. Felicitări Brașov, felicitări primarului Coliban. Fabulos că reușiți la nivel național să puneți pe agenda administrației publice, agenda companiilor, agenda societății civile, topicuri extrem de importante. Și într-adevăr, despre digitalizare s-a vorbit ieri, despre digitalizare și imediat doamna Gabriela Vlad o să vă prezinte câteva concluzii. Digitalizare pe care o găsim cam în toate inițiativele, cam în toate industriile, cam în toate aspectele vieții noastre, indiferent că vorbim de transport, că vorbim de mediu, că vorbim de energie, educație și așa mai departe, digitalizarea cumva este la baza a tot ceea ce înseamnă o comunitate inteligentă. Noi la nivelul Asociației Române pentru Smart City de 7 ani am reușit să creăm un ecosistem, cred că asta este și cea mai mare bucurie a mea, după 7 ani de activitate avem un ecosistem absolut fabulos de parteneri, de membri, sunt peste 300 de primării, consilii județene, companii, universități, un ecosistem extrem de vibrant. Încă o dată un eveniment extrem de util, foarte bine gândit și foarte important pentru ceea ce înseamnă, pentru că s-a vorbit foarte mult zilele astea despre implicare civică, despre well-being, despre ce înseamnă o comunitate, dar cred că tot focusul ar trebui să fie în perioada următoare extrem de pragmatic în zona proiectelor. Avem atât de mulți bani la dispoziție pentru următorii ani, încât nu ne permitem să ratăm aceste oportunități de investiții. Iar asta va cere din partea dumneavoastră, din partea tuturor instituțiilor, companiilor, societății civile chiar, implicare și mai ales pragmatismul, pentru că nimeni nu ne va finanța ideile, ci toată lumea ne va finanța doar proiectele, proiecte mature, proiecte bine scrise pentru comunitățile noastre. Mulțumesc încă o dată și concluziile workshop-ului de ieri, cel mai important workshop, țin să vă precizez acest lucru, pentru că partea de digitalizare s-a regăsit în toate celelalte workshop-uri, alături de doamna Gabriela Vlad.
Mulțumesc foarte mult și mulțumesc echipei pentru oportunitatea de a duce mai departe cuvântul echipei noastre. Am fost reprezentați din toate zonele de interes pentru acest workshop de digitalizare. Am fost oameni din administrația publică locală, Brașov, Sibiu, București, din societatea civilă, de cadrul companiilor, integratori de soluții software, integratori de proiecte Smart City și diverse alte companii care aduc valoare adăugată proiectelor noastre. Și nu în ultimul rând și din ADI de transport și alte persoane interesate de workshop. La un moment dat, fac o glumă așa, la un moment dat am spus, stați așa că începem să luăm din munca celor de la mobilitate sau din munca celor de la planificare urbanistică, deoarece, așa cum a spus domnul Dumitrașcu, noi suntem la baza tuturor proceselor administrative sau a proceselor unui oraș care dorește să fie inteligent. Deci digitalizarea nu este o disciplină hermetică, nu este ea de sine însăși o disciplină, nu mai este așa, ci stă la baza tuturor proceselor. Am început cu o discuție foarte interesantă despre transformarea digitală a Europei până în anul 2030, cu busola pentru dimensiunea digitală, cu cele 4 puncte cardinale esențiale și am făcut o dezbatere pe indicatorii DESI din 2022, având în vedere că cei pe 2023 încă nu au fost publicați. Și această analiză a reieșit foarte interesant cu punctele forte la care noi suntem în momentul de față și cum ar fi conectivitatea, deci partea de broadband, de conexiune la internet, foarte bine și pe specialiști IT. De aceea noi avem alături de noi companii foarte specializate, aduc multă valoare, numai că noi trebuie să fim atât de capabili încât să luăm cele mai bune servicii. S-a spus și mai devreme că poate aici este o problemă că nu reușim să aducem tot ce este mai bun de la companiile private și în sistemul public. De aceea noi trebuie să ne aducem specialiști și în cadrul administrației publice cât mai mulți cu care să putem să preluăm aceste soluții și să avem schimb de experiențe. Deci stăm bine cu specialiștii, stăm bine cu conectivitatea, stăm mai puțin bine cu utilizatorii de rând, populația. Populația din indicatorii DESI ne arată clar că este pe un trend ascendent, însă foarte, foarte scăzut față de media Uniunii Europene. Și atunci ar trebui să facem pași în acest sens, tocmai pentru a ne educa și ne aduce abilități suplimentare celor care ne consumă nouă serviciile electronice, serviciile publice în țară. Deci, cam acestea au fost discuțiile. A urmat apoi o sesiune, tot în prima parte, de prezentare a bunelor practici din cele 3 municipii, pentru că noi cei 3 am fost reprezentați cu reprezentanți de seamă din București, cum spuneam, Sibiu și din Brașov. Și ne-am dat seama că toți avem probleme comune, nu identice. De ce? Pentru că și tehnologiile Smart City și toate tehnologiile practic se aplică personalizat. Nu putem să spunem că facem copy-paste un proiect dintr-un oraș la altul, însă, așa cum știm cu toții, practic Smart City ce înseamnă? Este o oportunitate de dezvoltare și care creează și aduce edililor unui oraș oportunitatea de a prioritiza și a îmbunătăți sectoarele critice și să fie personalizate toate ideile cu specificul orașului respectiv. Și atunci ne-am dat seama că avem nevoie de comun, de platformă colaborativă și de multe alte idei pe care să ne le împărtășim. Și am încercat în a doua parte să extragem 3 subiecte, pentru că așa am primit de la Nicoleta, 3 subiecte trebuie să extragem, nu mai multe. Am extras din toate discuțiile noastre 3. Și am zis că dezvoltarea serviciilor electronice pentru cetățeni în deceniul digital, să aducem servicii furnizate complet electronic. Este un deziderat de mai mulți ani, chiar cu domnul primar am avut discuții în foarte multe rânduri, să aducem totul să fie complet electronic. Am reușit în mare parte din servicii, însă uneori avem bariere legislative sau reziliență din partea unor, diverse, poate parteneri străini sau parteneri străini, mă refer instituții terțe. Și atunci aceste fluxuri nu sunt complet digitalizate în interacțiunea cu alții. Și aici va trebui să punem în operă exact prevederile legii numărul 9 care prevede care spune despre partea de interoperabilitate și de fapt serviciile adevărate de one-stop shop să le punem în operă. În zona aceasta de servicii complet digitale am discutat despre impactul ultimelor crize asupra digitalizării. Bineînțeles că la nivel de populație n-a fost deloc bine, însă noi care am reușit să prindem trendul digitalizării și să mergem mai departe, să ne dezvoltăm servicii, a fost pentru noi o oportunitate. Acest impact a fost pozitiv, putem spune, până la un anumit punct, când am avut și probleme cu partea de indisponibilitate a anumitor echipamente, chipurile și tot știm cu toții că a fost o problemă pe piață în care nu primeam la timp anumite echipamente. Însă partea bună a adus că digitalizarea nu mai este o opțiune. Dacă înainte era o metodă alternativă, a devenit una importantă și cu adevărat principală. Spuneam și colegilor că interacțiunea fizică, dacă până acum era 70% și 30% online, sigur, în anii aceștia se va întâmpla invers, să fie minim 70% online și restul fizic. S-a schimbat foarte mult în concept munca la distanță. Vedem companiile deja și atrag specialiști foarte buni, oferindu-le și aceste posibilități cu munca la distanță, de telemuncă. S-a schimbat în strategie, s-au accelerat procese care stagnau sau care erau foarte, să zicem așa, încetinite. Am ajuns să avem provocări juridice, precum protecția datelor și semnătura electronică, aplicarea semnăturii electronice. Canale digitale au devenit principalele puncte de acces, cum spuneam mai devreme. Oportunități. Acestea au fost, să zicem, de impact. Oportunități este cadrul legislativ deja care este mult mai bun și îmbunătățit și îmbogățit, care sprijină acțiunile de digitalizare. Programele de finanțare, așa cum s-a spus și astăzi și știm cu toții, sunt multiple. De la POR, la programul regional acum, la PNRR sau programe specifice care au componentă majoră de digitalizare. Bariere în procesul de digitalizare, avem încă o lipsă a interoperabilității cu administrația centrală sau cu alte instituții și aici lucrăm pentru a crea să depășim aceste bariere. Dezvoltări de servicii publice insulare pot să fie și aici necorelate și încă un cadru, să zicem, legislativ volatil în eficientizarea actului administrativ și reziliența la schimbare. Acestea adică am discutat că ar fi câteva bariere. Al doilea punct, deci pe lângă serviciile digitale pe care le propunem să fie într-un proces complet digitalizat, ar fi creșterea gradului de digitalizare a populației. Și aici ne-am gândit că am putea să aducem și noi contribuția cu toții, de la toți actorii și stakeholderii pe care i-am spus mai devreme, acest ecosistem pe care îl creăm împreună, centre de incluziune digitală și centre de perfecționare în competențe digitale. Și aici am discutat că ar fi extrem de utile pentru că am aduce câteva puncte importante. Educație și formare, pentru centrele de incluziune digitală pot oferi cursuri și programe de formare. Avem aici și reprezentantul asociației care am putea lucra împreună și am putea și cu voluntariat și cu diverse, poate, surse de finanțare pe care le putem accesa împreună. Oferim acces la tehnologie, consiliere și asistență, programe și evenimente comunitare. Aici deja Primăria Brașov organizează foarte multe evenimente comunitare și aici mulțumim managerului de evenimente, care a adus întotdeauna diverse evenimente, cum ar fi și hackathon și ateliere de lucru, prezentări, promovarea învățării și colaborarea domeniului digital. Includerea grupurilor vulnerabile și aici ne gândim la vârstnici. Foarte multe municipalități doresc să meargă în totul în electronic, în digital, dar totdeauna mereu este o mică barieră, o mică frână, o mică gândire, ce facem cu oamenii în vârstă care nu au abilități digitale. Și atunci am propune să facem aceste cursuri de instruire, această apropiere către ei, ca să înțeleagă și să utilizeze serviciile pe care le oferim. Și dezvoltarea competențelor digitale avansate și schimb de bune date, de bune practici. Aici cu toții ne-am dat seama la acest atelier că putem învăța govern to business, business to govern, govern to govern. Deci toate aceste asocieri sunt bune pentru un centru de schimb de date de perfecționare. Și astfel s-a născut punctul 3, care este crearea unei rețele de schimb de date și bune practici. Crearea unei platforme colaborative și înființarea unor grupuri de lucru specifice, deoarece un mare grup de lucru pe digitalizare nu ar ajuta, pentru că interesele sunt diferite. Așa cum spuneam împreună, digitalizarea nu este o simplă disciplină ea însăși, ci este la baza tuturor proceselor și atunci poate ar fi bine să fie un grup pe e-administrație, pe soluții de servicii electronice, un grup pe transport inteligent, poate pe iluminat public inteligent, energie, mediu, protecția mediului. Și sunt foarte multe proiecte în acest sens. Alte nevoi pe care le-am identificat au fost politici de parcări de reședințe, soluții de management de trafic, politici de utilizare stațiilor de încărcare vehicule electrice, soluții de arhivare electronică a arhivei electronice. Și am încheiat. Aș vrea așa, cu permisiunea dumneavoastră, să închei într-o lumină optimistă, pentru că recunosc că am fost foarte inspirată de Dr. Cristina Zhang. You inspired me in the last conference and I will make some verses about metaverse and digital twin. Și asta este o notă personală. În lumina pixelelor, în realitatea virtuală, inteligența artificială este un diamant. În miezul codurilor într-o lume digitală, cu algoritmi sofisticați, dansul e fascinant. Surprind din nou un bit care iubește o celulă. Interacționând în lumea lor din metavers, dansează undeva între pământ și lună, împreună cu AI, visând, generând încă un vers. Mulțumesc!
Mulțumim mult, foarte frumos. Am avut parte și de o poezie. Nu în ultimul rând ieri, nu aici, ci la Centrul de Afaceri și Transfer și Inovare de Tehnologie, CATIA, pe scurt, cum îi spunem noi, au avut loc atelierul de mobilitate, care în sine a fost aproape ca o conferință, au fost peste 60 de participanți, cred, dar despre aceasta o să ne povestească domnul Cătălin Frangulea, director la Asociația Metropolitană pentru Dezvoltare Durabilă a Transportului Public Brașov, organizatorul sesiunii de acolo și partenerul nostru în tot ceea ce înseamnă dezvoltarea mobilității, dezvoltarea sustenabilă a mobilității în zona metropolitană Brașov. Bună, Cătălin, bine ai venit!
Bine v-am găsit, bună ziua tuturor! Într-adevăr, ieri la CATIA am avut un eveniment foarte fructuos, foarte eficient. Am fost într-adevăr aproximativ 60 de participanți. Ne-am concentrat în prima parte a zilei pe elemente de mobilitate urbană durabilă și am avut o reală dezbatere, un dialog pe teme de utilizarea bicicletelor și a trotinetelor în ecosistemele urbane, pe analizarea, să zic, a unor specii noi, dacă vreți, de trafic. E vorba de logistica urbană, livrările curierilor, felul în care gestionezi acest tip de trafic într-un ecosistem urban. Ne-am uitat foarte mult la partea de vehicule electrice și cum asigurăm o infrastructură de încărcare pentru a promova în mod real și pentru a ajunge la o reală schimbare de paradigmă în ceea ce privește utilizarea vehiculelor electrice în orașe. Și am avut parte de discuții privind trendurile din orașele europene, de ceea ce fac orașele din România, Brașovul fiind de pe această listă, și ce putem face mai departe. În partea a doua a zilei ne-am dus într-o zonă, să zic, un pic mai tehnică, în sensul în care ne-am concentrat pe componenta de transport public și felul în care reușim să facem la nivel local și metropolitan ca acest serviciu să fie cât mai bine primit de public și ne-am concentrat pe aspecte operaționale. Am discutat despre auditul tehnico-economic, despre felul în care primim feedback de la clientul final, de la pasagerii din transportul public. Ne-am uitat pe cadrul legislativ care vizează gratuitățile, facilitățile pentru elevi și studenți, pentru că acesta a fost actualizat de curând și e o zonă încă fierbinte în care noi, autoritățile metropolitane de transport, încă încercăm să vedem felul în care vom face implementarea. Iar la final ne-am concentrat un pic și pe provocările legate de implementarea proiectelor cu finanțare europeană. A fost un eveniment plin, a fost un eveniment extraordinar de pasional, pentru că oamenii cu care ne-am văzut sunt colegi și între timp au devenit prieteni în urma anilor de colaborare și am putut vedea cum, într-un sector care, să zicem, poate pare banal sau mult prea tehnic, participanții pun pasiune și pun energie și investesc resursă proprie, suflet, în felul în care își organizează sistemele de transport la nivel local și metropolitan. Am avut parte de o vizită neprevăzută, dar, cum să zic, spornică, la aeroportul Brașov și am putut să ne bucurăm de o expoziție de autobuze electrice. Am avut autobuze de diferite tipuri și dimensiuni furnizate și de colegii de la RAT Brașov, operatorul din zona metropolitană, dar și de colegii de la Iveco. Și spre seară am continuat discuțiile profesionale și într-un cadru informal. Practic am ajuns cumva, ne-am întins până pe la 11 noaptea. Dar tocmai pentru că cantitatea de suflet și de pasiune pusă în partea de mobilitate din partea participanților a fost una foarte mare și le mulțumesc foarte mult pe această cale. Mulțumesc, o zi ușoară!
Mulțumim! Continuăm acum cu panelul dedicat energiei. He joined Energy Cities in 2009 and was the perfect match for him to conciliate cities with the energy transition, a sector close to his background and interest, being a graduate of environmental engineering. Heading the Covenant of Mayors Office since 2015, Frederic Boyer has the opportunity to engage and support cities on the one hand, and on the other to advocate for an enabling legislative and financial framework together with his policy colleagues. What I can say is that he was really a good partner. Welcome, Frederic, and thank you for all the support, the feedback, and all the change of the ideas that we've had for organizing the Green Cities Forum. The stage is yours now with your speakers. You have 1 hour, so we will be delaying the coffee break. And the next panel will start at 12:30, not at 12, and we will eat faster. So at 2:30 we can start the third panel. But until then, hello Frederic, and thank you again.
Mulțumesc, Nicoleta. I see that it's already like 11:07. We have a coffee break, and then the second panel starts at 12. 12:30. Okay, so good. We do have an hour. Very happy to be here, and thanks a lot again to, I don't know if I should be using, I'm going to use this one, sorry for the technicians. Thanks again to Brașov and to all the partners here for inviting us, and I'm really delighted to moderate today this discussion between experts. I'm going to call them on stage, starting with Tabare Kuras, who is a global advisor for energy transition at the Worldwide Fund, WWF. He's been working on sustainable energy issues for 15 years, advising experts, cities, and so on. So please, Tabare, you can come on stage. Wolfram Sparber is heading the Institute for Renewable Energy at EURAC, but he's also the vice chair of the Association of European Renewable Energy Research Center, EUREC, in Brussels. And he's finally a board member of Alperia, one of Italy's leading renewable energy utilities. So welcome on stage. And we can also give an applause to Wolfram. He was the one doing it for the other speakers. And finally, Arthur Hinch is a colleague of mine in the Covenant of Mayors Office, but not only that, he's working, he's a sustainable energy system expert at ICLE Europe, another network of cities leading on sustainability in the European Secretariat. He focuses on promoting collective energy and the socially inclusive uptake of renewable energy infrastructure. So Arthur, welcome on stage, and thanks a lot for joining us here. So you see, we have 3 experts on energy issues, and I'm really glad to see that energy is the first panel, one of the 4 panels today, but starting the discussion today. I guess it's not really a surprise, and we could see yesterday also among the discussion between mayors and also in other sessions. Well, why discussing energy? Well, that's and we could see it in the last years. That's been a geopolitical tension leading to a war at some kilometers from here that had dramatic socio-economic impacts for our communities and for many of us. I think everyone started looking at the bill since we had this crisis more than a year ago. Finally, we all aware, and that's also a topic of those days, of the impact the use of energy can have on our health due to air quality issues in urban area, mobility, the way we are heating our house, obviously, but more importantly, on the future generations and the impact of the energy use on climate change. So for all those reasons, I guess it's normal that we kick off those panel discussion today looking at energy. And what I see is that, why discussing it in a city context, in a Green City Forum? Because alongside national administration, alongside the EU and member states, and alongside big energy utilities, big energy companies, local authorities have a key role to play in the energy transition. They are consumers of energy, they are planning, and there were a lot of discussion around urban planning, and this is a good potential to drive the transition. They are also, in some cases, producers and distributor of energy. And finally, they can be the one, and that was mentioned before, bringing together citizens, NGOs, private companies in order to drive the transition. And finally, energy is at the basis of every product we use, our phone, the food, and so on. And we could see it also with the inflation and its dramatic impact in the last month. So this is something, the role of cities in the energy and climate transition is fully recognized. I guess, and that's also the messages we will be taking to the European Commission, yet not enough. So we can improve the situation, we can improve it in countries, but also at EU level. But there are initiatives. We mentioned the Covenant of Mayors. There's also the Mission for Climate Neutral Cities that was mentioned by the Director of the Commission in the opening of this event. So a lot to do, but I don't want to take too much, and I want to give the floor to our speakers. And actually, we're going to start with Tabare talking about energy poverty, and that was something that was exacerbated by the energy crisis. And Tabare is going to give us some insights on what can be done to alleviate it. Tabare, the floor is yours. And there should be some slides, and I think you have the... Welcome.
Hello, this works. All right, well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Let me start extending my deep gratitude to the city of Brasov, to the authorities of the city, and particularly to the citizens. You have a tremendously beautiful city. You should be very proud of it. So thanks for making the city shining green in the climate and energy space. Today, I want to talk about a topic that I truly believe would be a subject of fascination by this great writer Eugene Ionescu, which I'm sure you might know, one of the artists that founded the School of the Absurd. And I say this because I think talking about energy poverty is a little bit absurd, and I will explain why. Is this one? Okay, there you go. I think it is absurd to talk about energy poverty because we live in a world where we are capable of land a spaceship in a moving asteroid, because we're in a world where we can write a whole poem just by typing a few words on ChatGPT, where we live in a world where we can codify our history just with a couple of chemical tests, and we have not been able to solve 750 million living in energy poverty. And to me, that's quite shocking. We talk about 100 countries that today, they still lack access to electricity. I myself, I'm from Mexico. I know my region, we have problems of energy access and poverty. And when we hear the story of energy poverty, we always come with the idea of darkness and students using light bulbs to get the readings. I am pretty shocked that here in Europe, there's 9% of people also in energy poverty, in energy deprivation. So when we talk about winter, 9% of the people have problems to warm their homes. And now there's another very appealing issue, and with the context of rising temperatures, the context of global warming, and having cooling in your home is also becoming a priority. And because various reasons, only 20% of Europeans have access to energy, to air conditioning. And most of that is related because of their fear of energy prices. So to me, it is quite important to recall a phrase that Ionescu said once, and it is not the answer what enlightened us, but the question. And the question that I have to pose today to you is why we still have energy poverty. I think one of the main problems with energy poverty is that yet today we still do not fully understand what it is energy poverty. Traditionally speaking, we attribute energy poverty to a problem of distribution, a problem that relates to deprivation of household income, problems with the energy market, failures in the energy market, rising of prices, and problems with the efficiency characteristics of dwellings. And that's very true. Those are imminent consequences or origins of the energy poverty problem. But there are two other reasons that we must acknowledge. At first, we need to recognize the failure of the global socio-economical system and recognize that we still have people in vulnerability and marginalization that are still impacted culturally, politically, economically, and socially by the dynamics of the energy poverty. And furthermore, we lack spaces for participation, for involvement, for engagement, and moreover, decision-making of many of these groups. So when we talk about this energy poverty issue, we're talking about a very integrated, holistic problem that is not rooted only on energy distributive dynamics, but also in social and political dynamics. But today I don't want to come with a bad story. I want to talk about the benefits, or the opportunities, better to say, to talk about energy poverty in the context of cities. And that's why I'm very excited today to talk about what the local cities can do about energy poverty. And it's very simple, to be honest. Cities and local governments have a proximity to the problem. They can really understand what are the magnifiers of the poverty. They can give a voice to the marginalized and vulnerable people that are experiencing these problems. And more importantly, with all the barriers, with all the shortcomings, they can engage with the city stakeholders, with the communities, to create disruptive and innovative solutions to solve the problem. In other words, they can make the picture of the problem, create the solution collectively, and strategize, communicate, and persuade a shift of paradigm in what is energy poverty and how it can be understood. Let me come back a little bit to Europe. Europe is doing a tremendous effort to deal with this. And part of this exercise of solving the energy poverty crisis comes to this, in my view, this analytical way of trying to define for all the members what it is energy poverty. So there has been a creation of this energy poverty index. On screen you see a graph of how energy poverty looks in different countries in Europe. So we can recognize that despite there are some countries doing better, some countries doing worse, we do have a problem. And what I find very interesting about this energy index is how it is built. This energy index it has two very important things. The first one is that it does not only recognize energy poverty from the lack of access to energy services, but also the lack of access to energy for transport. And this is very fundamental because after the COVID crisis, we started also having problems for people being deprived to have access to an affordable way of transportation. Also very interesting in this energy index is, in the end, it's an index that is, again, reaffirming the distribution paradigm. It's based on the idea of problems to afford energy, based on the idea of the cost of households to refurnish and make more efficient their homes. It's based on the idea of the accessibility of citizens to transport. And it's understandable when we have this kind of indicators that the extraordinary policies that at the European level are being set talk about measures to control inflation, support to renewable energy investments, programs to create energy efficiency households, support to local governments to create programs that empower, for example, some stakeholders in the process of the energy transition. despite all this, it is not to be surprised that we're still talking about this distributive problem. We are still thinking that energy poverty is going to be solved somehow by changing the market rules, changing the way the economic energy system functions. And I think that it is not only the solution that we need to talk about. Let me bring to you this very interesting work that was led by the Global Energy, the Covenant of Mayors for Energy and Climate, together with the Subcommittee on Energy Poverty and Energy Access. This study was conducted by Arup, and they interviewed more than 70 local governments across the world, including Eastern Europe, to try to unpack where is the problem and the solutions for energy poverty at local level. And at first, they recognize that there are barriers. We all know these barriers. Over the last days, we have been discussing about them. Governments lacking funding to do the projects. Governments sometimes lacking the resources from a human perspective, the capacities to involve into programs, and in some cases, even lack of leadership. But these are not only the issues that governments and local cities face. We can also talk about their limited influence they have on energy service and energy assets, and the limited powers to deal with the multiple views, multiple visions, multiple aspirations of the stakeholders of a community. So far, the story sounds quite terrifying, to be honest, but that's when the best part of this study comes. What are those solutions that can get us closer to a better definition of energy poverty and finding better solutions to it? And the first one is to amplify the horizons. They amplify the horizons of the policy interventions, where we think that normally local governments, they have an urgency to solve immediate problems, but many times they lack the long-term vision. Well, by amplifying the spectrum of our aspirations, can help us define at local level what are better interventions in the short term. And we can create better methods to approach our communities and to distribute the resources that we need to create, for instance, cascading effects. It's very hard for local governments to have specialized people on energy poverty, but we need to find creative ways to incorporate the topic in a multidisciplinary approach. As for example, we do it when we approach climate and energy issues. So when we have an energy poverty perspective in climate, an energy poverty perspective in environmental development, an energy poverty perspective in equity of rights, etc., then we are getting closer to maximize the resources that we have and implement projects that generate benefits and co-benefits in various topics. Finally, another conclusion, and this is the one that I like the most, and thanks, Doctor, for your intervention, the collective power. How we can harness the collective power and strengthen our programs. And I believe that it is very fascinating that we think about tools, but if we provide the society with tools, we also need to provide the society with opportunities for them to use these tools, because if we give them the tools, they will not do the job by themselves. We need to create the space for them to actively participate in the decision-making of the energy policies and the changes that we aspire at our local level. I'm gonna finish soon with my presentation, but I want to bring to this talk two things. The first one is that dear cities and dear citizens, you're not alone in this endeavor, and there are institutions out there that are aiming to support you in this process. And I really want to bring this because the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy, together with many other organizations like my sister organizations, C40, ECLAY, the Carbon Disclosure Project, UN Habitat, the Joint Research Center of Europe, and of course WWF, we have developed this, what we call the Pillar for Energy Access and Poverty. And this pillar is now a new set of guidelines that governments can use based on 54 indicators to better track energy poverty with an integrated and holistic perspective of how this should be approached. And very interesting, this has been now adopted as part of the Common Reporting Framework created in 2019 by the Covenant, which is the set of procedures, the governance, also guidelines that help us implement, design, plan, and monitor and track our climate action, always with a perspective of energy sustainability and resolution of energy poverty. So that's one thing that I would like to keep in mind, that now we have some procedures that can guide you to track better energy poverty. And let me bring also one of the initiatives that WF has in place, that it is somehow based in these principles. We want to help you making the picture of the situation. We want to assist you in the creation of the co-collective knowledge and solutions. And more important, we want to assist you in the engagement process with your citizens. The One Planet City Challenge is the recognition that WWF does in more than 60 countries to those cities that are really at the forefront of the climate action, at the forefront of the environmental sustainability, and at the forefront of resolving the energy crisis. So I'm very happy to say that this year we're launching a project that is focusing on 7 Romanian cities. Hopefully one of them is going to be Brașov, so here is my invitation to the city of Brașov to join this endeavor of the One Planet City Challenge and the Life as a project, which is aiming to accelerate the climate action that happens at local level with the support of citizens. So I will finish my presentation quoting something that I just recently heard about from Dr. Rachel, I can't remember her last name. You will need to excuse me. She's the Rachel Goyet. She's the director of CIV, the Institute for European Studies. And she brought to my attention this fascinating element of the European Pillar for Social Rights. And it is very clear, you're reading it. Energy should be seen as a human right somehow. It's something that should be accessible to everyone. And to finalize, I want to again quote Eugene Ionescu with this statement. It is not the answer what enlightens, but the question. And my question is right now, when will we stop seeing energy as a commodity, and when we're going to start seeing it as a universal right for everyone? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tabare. Very inspiring element on a difficult topic. And it's true, we've been including it in the Covenant like 7 or 8 years ago, and also then working with the colleagues of the Global Covenant. And now hearing your presentation, I see that we were right, amplifying the mitigation of climate change, adaptation to climate change, pillars of the Covenant that were the basis, also to the question of energy poverty, because that's the solution we need to implement, and of course that's in the cities that needs to happen. We're going to now move and get let's say we're going to amplify, if I'm not mistaken, with Wolfram on the energy transition at city level and see what are the other policy triggers that a local authority can take to do the transition. Wolfram, the floor is yours, if you can try to keep to the 15 minutes so that we give time for the audience.
Thank you very much. So thanks as well from my side. It's really a pleasure to be here. Thanks to the city of Brașov, to the mayor of Brașov, to Alain, to invite us, give us the opportunity to discuss with all of you these important topics, but as well these opportunities. And really let's try to see the opportunities in all the challenges we see in front of us. I would like to talk about the energy transition. This is the seat where our research center is made. It's similar as we saw it in Brașov. It was a former aluminum industry which has been converted in a technology and innovation park with now around 2,000 people working in there from research, from innovation and startup companies. I have the pleasure there to lead a small team which is dealing with energy efficiency, renewables and e-mobility since around 20 years now. We've got there a series of laboratories which allow us to go deep into technology development and technology innovation of different energy fields, which we see absolutely necessary and important. On European level, I'm working since several years, more than 10 years actually, first in the renewable heating and cooling technology platform, and now in EUREC in trying to push renewable energy innovation in the space, because we have a lot of solutions here, but we need to go on the track of making renewable technology more accessible, cheaper and more efficient. And finally, I would like to spend a word on energy utilities. We heard it before, because I think that utilities, especially public or partially public whole utilities, can be one of the elements which really help against energy poverty and actually give back access to energy and give back access to cheap energy to the city, and allow to do big necessary long-term investments in a city. So I followed one of these utilities for over 10 years, and we invested over 100 million a year in energy infrastructure, among them district heating system, e-mobility, refurbishment of buildings, so in all sectors of efficiency and of renewables, and it really can make a lot of difference if it's done in the right way for a city. So, energy transition of cities, in my understanding, energy is often collected only to electricity. And this is, in my opinion, not right. We have to see the full picture. So you have to see electricity, of course, but we have to see heating and cooling, and we have to see transport and industry needs. And we need to see both sides. On one hand, use as little energy as possible, so be as efficient as possible, and use as much as possible renewable, wasted local energy sources. And the fact of local energy sources, in my opinion, is another key, because it gives you back a key in deciding where's the energy coming from, what is the price of the energy, and actually do we have it. So we do not want that somebody who sits thousands of kilometers away decides if we have energy and how much we have to pay for that. So let's try to keep the source and as well the added value on the territory and not send our money all over the world. I bring you now to a short journey through European projects we were working on, we were leading, as well in order to tell you European projects are one opportunity to look deeper into certain topics which might be too difficult or too risky doing without them, and as well an opportunity to partner up. So I'm happy to hear from you if you're interested on that, and some practical experiences I went through. So I want to start with energy efficiency. Brasov has the beautiful opportunity to expand and to build new space, but I really invite you as well to look at what is there and keep investing in your building infrastructure. In order to keep it nice, in order to keep it accessible, to keep it beautiful, I'll show you a couple of pictures of an FP7 project we went through where we refurbished 35,000 square meters of social dwellings in Bolzano, northern Italy, a city I'm from. And actually refurbishment, in my opinion, is not only putting a new facade, making the building more efficient, but giving a lot of more services to the inhabitant than they have in older buildings. So access to balconies, access to ventilation, access to cooling, access to elevators, which in many buildings are not there, so elderly people have difficulty to get in their buildings. And there are many ways how you can do that. I know it's let's say, a hard stone to work, because usually payback times on a pure energy part are very long, so that's difficult to do. One example which is here, which I don't know if this is done in Romania or not, but I found it very interesting way to trigger investments is the fact to allow, if a certain way of refurbishment is done, to add volume. So in this case, you see there's one floor more afterwards than it was before. So the one who invests actually gets an additional volume who can sell on the market, and that gives, let's say, a possibility to do investments which otherwise would not be done. Okay, let's leave this part. We've done a series of projects on refurbishment technology, on speeding up refurbishment, on industrialization of facades, on bringing it more, and we always do that with demo applications in cities, because we believe we need to see technology not only in a lab, but actually in large-scale applications. So we're always looking for active partners and for cities where to implement demo application, where actually to show these new technologies and to see how they're working and where the difficulties are. I would like to close this session by saying that we have a whole research group working on the topic of historical buildings, and often historical buildings are seen as a part of the buildings which cannot be touched. They're historical, we cannot touch them. And that is not true at all. Obviously, a historic building needs to remain a historic building, and we need to be very attentive to what we can do. but you might not believe, but you can do a lot on historic buildings. By touching the elements you don't want to change. Obviously, if I have a fresco, you have a fresco and you're not going to touch the wall. But you might touch the roof, you might touch the ground, you might refurbish windows, you might put renewables on different places in there. And it's not only a matter of beauty and of efficiency, but again, it's a matter of comfort. If old buildings are getting more and more uncomfortable, people won't use them anymore. And you lose parts of your cities because the attractiveness goes down and so on and so forth. So look at that, and there are many solutions out there. In that project, for example, we combined this project with a project from the International Energy Agency, which we led, and we combined hundreds of case studies all over the world where very attractive refurbishments have been done. Let's come to the local resources, and the first thing I want to talk about is obviously renewables, but connected to district heating. I know district heating in many Eastern European countries had a very bad reputation because you had made bad experiences, it was inefficient, it was hot, it got switched off, it got cold in certain times, and so on and so forth. But on the other hand, if a district heating is well done, it is a key to bring renewables into the town and to bring different renewables in town. We've seen Brasov is a very green city, so there's a lot of biomass around. So one obvious source would be to use the biomass which is surrounding. It might not be the one which is heating the whole city, but it can do a part of the game. And again, it's a local value chain. You give farmers the possibility to get some income for the biomass for not cutting down the whole forest, obviously, but for cleaning sustainably and looking sustainably after the forest which is out there. Another thing which I know is a lot discussed, and it's not renewable or it's only partially renewable, but it's as well a local resource, is waste. We all have waste in our cities. We produce waste every day. Obviously, we try to recycle as much as possible, but as well it's obvious that we cannot come to the point where we recycle 100%. So waste is another possibility to use it, to collect it, to do it in a professional way, to have very clear standards on how you clean your area afterwards, but you can do it if done in an efficient way. You can produce local electricity, you can produce local heat, which is used on a local level. Every city has an individual best mix of local resources, and every city has to look what is out there. And there might be very different things. It can be deep or shallow geothermal. It might be in parts solar thermal in big applications. It might be waste heat from power plants, from industrial sites. It might be ambient heat from lakes, rivers, seas, or air. But all this needs to go into an optimized district heating system. And that is a long-term investment. You have to dig down millions of tubes under the floor of the whole city. But it is like an internet. Once you have it there, then you can start playing. And there can be different actors who bring in heat, who take out heat, who put their waste heat in there, and so on and so forth. And you can evolve it over time, change it over time in order to adapt it to the needs of the city. So we have been working a lot in that field. We are now leading, I think, our sixth project in the field of fourth and fifth generation district heating systems, looking very deep how you can manage best low temperature district heatings or different temperature district heatings where you actually take in as much heat as possible. In order to give you another concrete example, an average supermarket has waste heat for heating up around 300 flats in a house. So there's really a lot of energy which we're wasting every day. Already present, we just need the technology to use it best and to bring it back. And obviously industry is another thing. It might be high temperature industry, low temperature industry, data center we have been talking about, or many other sources. Local renewable electricity sources, we will hear afterwards something about energy community, so I don't want to go into details about that. Obviously PV is the most obvious thing, and let's try to use what we have in our town, but that might not be enough. And we probably need the surroundings in order to install more renewables, in order to get enough renewable energy for the cities we are living in, because the density and the consumption in these cities is much higher. So we are leading at the moment a European project on the combination of photovoltaics and agriculture, which in my opinion is another way of reducing the impact of renewables and using a surface twice. We try to find all these ways where it is beneficial for both sides, for the energy side and the agriculture side, not to get 100% of sun, to get a little bit less sun, but still exactly the right amount which the plants need below. And obviously, if you integrate PV in buildings, you can do it in many ways. I'm, let's say, a big fan of possibly doing it right and doing it as sensible as possible. If you are interested and have some case studies, we collected here a series of case studies from northern Italy and the whole Alpine space on photovoltaics, how to integrate it best in different buildings. We combined it again with an International Energy Agency task, new buildings, old buildings, historic buildings, and there are really many possibilities by now by photovoltaics to be integrated in a proper way. Another way of using renewable energy, and we've heard it before, is access to transport. And electrification of transport is the way how you can change from importing diesel or petrol from somewhere else in the world by using your renewable energy which you have on site and which you produce on site. Obviously, e-mobility is much more than cars. So electric cars are much better than fossil cars because they're much more efficient and because they're silent, they have no emissions, and so on and so forth. But obviously it is much better than an electric car is to use a smaller way of moving around. It might be a roller, it might be an electric bike, or it might be this kind of shared mobility. I know it's a discussion in cities. Several Italian cities as well closed them completely out because of a traffic issue. But from an energy perspective, this kind of small mobility is super efficient. Super efficient. And obviously, as well, from a space perspective, instead of moving 2 tons of metal around you and batteries and needing 10 square meters of surface, you have a very small battery and you need not even 1 square meter. So you need much less space and you actually as well move your body. So for all distances where this is possible, and Brasov is a small city, most of the distances within a city you can do it with this kind of small transportation is a perfect solution. Electrification of transport obviously goes all the way, including as well logistics. We heard it before, and public transport. I saw that here in Brasov a lot has been done. We did a lot of monitoring and simulation on buses, just published some data on comparing electric and hydrogen buses to diesel buses. And I think this is another way, again, using local renewable energy for your transportation. Obviously, you need as well here, it's not just you change one vehicle with another one. It is a whole system which has to be changed. You need a whole thinking about infrastructure which is needed. Which one do I have to pay? Which one can I leave over private actors to pay because there is a business model behind it? But it is needed. Without infrastructure, this transformation will not come, and we're leading several projects in that field. I'm coming to the conclusion, talking about green. Green has nothing to do with energy, might be, but it has to do. Because a greener city has not only a better air quality and it's nicer to live in, but it's as well, it's much cooler in hot days. So we heard it before from Metaverse that she doesn't want to be grilled every day. Well, greening is one of the ways how not to be grilled. It's clear that the temperature, if you are in a concrete desert, is much higher than if you are in a green surrounding. We are leading here a project on nature-based solution, how to bring back nature-based solutions, again with a series of cities around Europe, and I'm happy to include in future as well, cities from Romania. Last words. Brasov, I think we saw it yesterday, it's a beautiful city and a long heritage, and I think the grandfathers gave you a beautiful place to live in. I had the opportunity to drive a little bit around and to run around as well other parts of Brasov, and I said it before, Brasov has the big opportunity of growth, of building new infrastructure. I would say it's as well a big responsibility, and let's make sure that the future generations can be proud about what we're doing today as we are what our grandfathers have been done in the past. So let's make sure that what we build is really sustainable. And I, in certain parts, was wondering, maybe I just didn't see it, where's the solar, where are the trees, where are the kids' playgrounds, are the bicycle lines all there, or the electric mobility infrastructure there. Let's think about the fact that what we're building today stays there at least the next 50 years. And if you do it right now, it costs very little. If you have to correct it in a second way, it is complicated and very costly. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Wolfram. You missed the presentation of Alain Coliban yesterday in the mayor's session, where he explained how they are trying to green the city, but there will be a panel later on this topic. And thank you for covering all the different solutions from refurbishment, clearly the building stock, historical, true for Brasov too and for many cities across Europe. The new buildings, I mean the existing buildings first, but then also creating a new neighborhood, like the example we have here in this new neighborhood. Without further ado, I would like to give the floor now to Arthur to go through, after talking about energy poverty, I mean a main issue in terms of energy transition, after looking at possible solutions, now it's looking at also a solution, but through governance. How do we really engage citizens into the energy transition? Arthur, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks. Great, thanks a lot, Frédéric and colleagues for the presentations, and my presentation will actually connect quite nicely to this. So my name is Arthur Hinch, Sustainable Energy Systems Expert at ICLEI Europe in Freiburg, Germany. Energy Governance and Climate Policy was my former title, but I would very much talk about energy governance, specifically about energy communities. So perhaps a quick word of introduction about ICLEI. We are a global network of cities for urban sustainability. As you can see, we operate around the globe, supporting thousands of local authorities, local and regional authorities in innovative projects around sustainability, the acquisition of capital for new projects, the exchange between different cities. And myself, I work for the European Secretariat, where we work closely with the European institutions, but also on the global level, we represent the local government's constituency to the United Nations climate change framework. So, and we work on much more than just energy and just more than energy communities. We are quite a large team in Freiburg, and of course, we'd be very happy to support all of you in getting your sustainability transition forward. So, talking about energy communities, my job here today is to follow up on the workshop from yesterday, the very interesting workshop, but also to give you a realistic, I think, perspective on the topic and what is really possible within the framework of creating a just energy transition. We often hear that there's a lot of interest in more local and decentralized energy transitions, energy supply, and all with the idea of providing local, secure supply and affordable energy. But there's also this element of we need to include citizens, we need to make our energy transition just. But here I really want to ask, what actually makes a transition just? This isn't asked too much. Too often I think this term is just being thrown around quite haphazardly. There is this great quote, and it says, "The people will not unite behind science, they will unite behind justice." And I think this is reflected in so many realities that mayors and city officials around the world face. People will always ask, okay, how does this new policy affect me? How does it affect my ability to pay for my energy, to take care of my family, and etc. Just is always connected to three elements of justice: distributional justice, so that speaks to the cost, responsibilities, and benefits that are associated with the equal spread across society; procedural justice, so participation in policies related to environmental sustainability, for instance, but also recognition justice, so people do want to be heard, and of course every mayor and every city official will be able to attest that the moment you put a policy out there, people really have an opinion and they want to be recognized in terms of having this opinion. If you're interested, ICLEI has co-authored a guide or principles on sustainable and just cities. This can be accessed online, of course, so there's a huge framework. And it's within that background that I would like to talk to you about energy communities. So what are energy communities? In a nutshell, energy communities are a very broad concept, and it can basically be defined as collective initiatives of stakeholders, such as citizens, local authorities, businesses, who jointly finance, own, govern, and carry out energy-related activities. This can be a whole bunch of activities. You mostly hear about production, consumption, storage, energy sharing, aggregation. Sometimes you hear flexibility and immobility services being provided here as well. And I want to make sure that you understand that energy communities are a broad concept. It does very much relate to the European framework that we now have as a result of the Clean Energy Package, related to both renewable energy communities coming out of the recast Renewable Energy Directive, as well as citizens' energy communities coming out of the electricity market directive. I won't go too much into the difference here. We had a lovely workshop yesterday, but just to make you understand that these are the European legislative elements that have to be transposed on the national member state level. Also here in Romania, there's an enabling framework coming connected to that. I won't go into the depth here, but also I would like to make you understand that there's many other initiatives out there currently developing that have some kind of energy community activity, that are energy communities, but they don't necessarily correspond to the European enabling framework. Does that make them worth less? I would argue no. So what makes an energy community just? I think that's also very, very important to consider. I think too often it is just assumed that the moment you call something an energy community, that's automatically legitimized within the greater context of urban sustainability and just transitions. So we really have to ask, what makes an energy community just? So an energy community, I'll give you an example, a PV installation, I don't know, like a 6 megawatt peak solar PV installation or a wind turbine, a wind park, can have the financial participation of the municipality, but also of citizens. Now, the wind park or the solar field can be a cooperative, so where every member has one vote. So you invest and you have a vote irrelevant of your investment. But also it can be a limited liability company, and then suddenly investment is coupled to voting rights. Now, some people would say only a cooperative structure, like one member, one vote, that is just. And other people will say, no, I invested way more than you, so obviously I should have more voting rights. So that is just. It's very important to be aware of these nuances. Also, we have to ask who is part of energy communities. We really want to make sure that energy communities include more citizens and make sure that more people are able to pay their energy bills and more people feel recognized. So, too often, I think, nobody asks, when we talk about European policy in general, the label of citizens is being attached everywhere. And not often enough we're asking who is the citizen in citizen-led. And we're not often asking who is the community in community-driven. I think it's very important to understand that. And there is merits in all kinds of energy communities. There is merit in all kinds of community-based activities. But we have to understand the moment we have a wind park, let's say, that is financed by a particular group of people that do invest into the wind park then sells that electricity, and the investors receive a certain return on their investment, 4%, 6%. It is clear that only those people who already had the capital at the beginning will have the opportunity to benefit from their investment and to actually make money. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just something to be aware of because it has implications in terms of what is just. There is something, and the little seagull here looking into the horizon at the beach is remembering this nice Bible quote, which was, "For to everyone that has shall be given, and he shall have abundance." It's clear that this kind of what is called a Matthew effect has to be taken into account, and ideally in the future it needs to be avoided to make sure that energy communities, this great concept, is actually being used in a way that is inclusive to all citizens, regardless of their income, regardless of their kind of standing in society, and etc., etc. But of course we also know that the great idea behind energy communities is that through investment you generate local acceptance of renewables, and that's something that cities and regions and national authorities are very much interested in. So a couple of things that we really see with energy communities developing, and I will go into a few examples later, is we have a bit of a divide when you look into what kind of energy communities are currently developing around Europe. On one hand, there's top-down energy communities. What do I mean? These are energy communities where the municipality primarily takes the leadership in setting up the energy community, in talking to potential project developers, in informing citizens. The municipality sets up the legal structure for a certain project and then allows citizens to take part. And we see a lot of evidence that this is currently happening. On the other hand, there's bottom-up energy communities. These are energy communities where people come together around the kitchen table, people that are very motivated, and you see these motivated people all over Europe that create an energy cooperative or something, and they do it in their free time. It's voluntary work, mostly. So this is bottom-up. Then we have to ask the question, are citizens in an energy community active beneficiaries? So do they participate in the governance? Do they participate with investment, in decision-making? And therefore are active beneficiaries of either renewable energy supply or lower costs? Or are they passive beneficiaries by just being part of a cooperative but not necessarily taking part in day-to-day decision making, not being part in the technical process, but they just receive the electricity via different systems, or they receive rebates on their energy bill? And also, and this is barely discussed, but it's very important to consider, it depends very much where you go in Europe and how you frame energy communities. On one hand, and we see a lot of evidence on this in a lot of Western European countries, I suppose, there's a strong sense that if you have a strong identification with your region, people really want to be active for the local energy transition. They want to be active for local sustainable development for their community. So energy communities are an outlet for this kind of high energy of community volunteering. And the European Economic Social Committee has actually shown that there is a lot of evidence that people really want to do this. On the other hand, we had conversations with cities and councillors that give testimony of, they go to their citizens and they say, okay, let's do an energy community, and you have to be part of the voluntary structure to set up an energy community. And the feedback they're getting is, well, why should we? Don't we have energy companies for that? So it's not always that black and white. On one hand, a lot of cities and citizens are interested in taking part of the energy transition, but we also have to be realistic. Not everyone wants to join an energy community. Not everyone is just waiting to invest their free time into setting up an energy community, and we have to be very careful how we make it attractive for them to take part. So let me now give you a few concrete examples of that I find very inspiring. This is a nice blend of a bottom-up and a top-down energy community that is all about inclusivity. This is a case from the Lisbon Parish Authority of Lumiar in Portugal, and it has been a collective initiative of several organizations, the Local Network Association and the university and the Lisbon Parish Authority and Copernico, which is an existing energy community in Portugal, a cooperative, and they're supporting other cooperatives to set up. And what they've done is they're going to set up an energy community with 18 solar panels, I think 7.4 kilowatt peak or something, on the roof of this association building. They're going to involve 18 households, and the idea is to make use of the Portuguese law around energy sharing, which essentially allows for the energy sharing within the same low voltage substation within a given radius. And that leads to rebates on energy bills. The idea is that every household has a certain membership fee, they participate, and they receive, over a couple of years, they receive rebates on their own energy bills, because the PV installation that has been collectively financed creates some kind of benefits. On the other hand, there's also households who cannot invest into this community because they're classified as energy poor, they don't have the high income. In this case, actually, their contribution has been covered by the municipality, but also by the remaining households who have a little bit more income. So this is a good example of a solidarity-based energy community, which is inclusive and very conscious of the different backgrounds of European citizens. Also, and I won't go too much into depth here, but this is a great example of an intermunicipal collaboration of an energy community, where different municipalities actually come together and set up an energy community across, within a region. They all have jointly invested. And what I really want to showcase here, and that's on the next slide actually, is how they communicate about it. They say an energy community, it's from the region, it's for the region. And you see here on the right all these lovely pictures of the local football club kind of endorsing the energy community, but also like having a communication campaign around, yes, we have participated in energy community, and in this particular case, they actually have created a regional electricity product. So there's a high sense of identification between the mission of the energy community and the region. And I would very much encourage these kind of processes happening here as well, because there is a lot of evidence, empirical evidence, that this actually leads to a lot of acceptance and participation in the energy transition. They also do other things, such as energy savings advice, connecting energy poverty, supporting people and explaining how do you actually read an energy bill. You'd be surprised how many people don't even know how to read an energy bill. The moment want to go and talk to them about energy poverty, they need to understand their bill, and most people don't. So this is really a good way to do this. And we see actually, and also this was framed, for instance, within one of the projects we were involved in, the PowerPoor project, where actually many energy communities where there's volunteer engagement, they are actually they're supporting kind of the creation of municipal one-stop shops on a voluntary basis to advise other people how to read the energy bill and what they can do in the short term to save energy. So there's that connection as well. I don't have too much time, but I want to make sure that you understand that there is good examples of energy communities that do not primarily rely on citizens' capital. So in the Netherlands, there's a very nice program, there's a little bit text heavy, where energy cooperatives, they receive a fixed subsidy for their electricity from the national government, and there are municipal financing schemes in the Netherlands for social enterprises where social enterprises can tap into. This cooperative uses that capital to these energy funds for its own operations, to actually pay an external project developer who then carries the financial risk. So on one hand, citizens are part of the energy cooperative, they're able to benefit from it. There is rebates created on the bills of energy poor households, but they don't rely on citizens' investment in the first place, or they don't rely on volunteer work. That's very important to consider, and this is kind of a new wave of energy communities that we see developing at the moment. Of course, people who have the money can still invest, but it's no prerequisite for the cooperative activities, and this is something that we would very much like to see across Europe as well. Perhaps a last quick example is the municipality of Kozani in Greece. They're in a coal-producing area. They want to move away from coal. They're using this shared heritage as being a coal region to create an energy community, but very critically, not an energy community of citizens. It's an energy community of municipal services. And the idea here is to create a 6 megawatt solar park, and via the system of virtual net metering, where you're able to join an energy community or become part of a PV park that is located somewhere else, and then you use that electricity to create rebates on your own energy bill. It's a system that works now in Greece, not everywhere else, but they're using that to create benefits and cost reductions on the municipal services that are part of this energy community. And then instead of citizens receiving a financial remuneration, they receive a reduction of the amount of fees they have to pay for these municipal services, who in turn, of course, profit from the electricity cost reductions due to them being part of the energy community. So different approaches about what does it mean. This is an energy community of municipal services that tries to create value for all the municipal citizens, and not only for a selected few. So another way of looking at it. There's also the way to have an energy community as a service, but I think we could perhaps go into that in the panel discussion. So I will skip this for now, but perhaps we have time to discuss this, but just to iterate that there's also opportunity for private companies to offer energy communities as a service. And then there's this huge question about ownership, and that's something to be explored perhaps in the discussion. In terms of what local governments do, we covered that extensively in the workshop tomorrow. I'm happy to reiterate here. It's on the slide. But of course, I think you got the greater picture, but I thought it was very important here. So it's of course important to fund energy communities in a low-threshold manner in a way that people who want to invest their time can do it without having to go through too much administration and all of that. These are a few examples. And I will leave it at this for now. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out until the end of the day or an email, and of course looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arthur, for this guiding us through the nuances of different type of energy cooperatives that can be set up. And I think I'm sure it's inspiring for the participants to see what they can do, which type of energy cooperative they can support as a city, as citizens. And I hope, again, you have information on the potential contacts also to trying to do so. We have very few moments left before you can actually interact with I'm sure the panelists will be happy to discuss with you around the coffee. But we have 5 minutes, so I would welcome 1 or 2 questions to the panel if they are in the room before I let you go for a well-deserved coffee. There's a question at the back, I don't know. Yeah, there's a microphone coming from behind. Can you just quickly introduce yourself and just, go for your question?
Sure. My name is Corina Murafa. I'm an energy policy expert, quite active here in the country. But by background, I'm a political scientist. So my question goes maybe a little bit in this direction, because you've all mentioned all these solutions, and arguably the solutions are not missing. The funding is not missing, at least not in Romania, if you look at all the pot of money that's coming in with the Green Deal and everything, and multiple other financing mechanisms. And yet, the energy transition is not going here and elsewhere at the speed that we all want. So what is really missing at the level of this whole cocktail that we're trying to put together in order to save the planet, quote unquote, but ultimately kind of save ourselves?
Thank you. Is there another question in the room so that I take 2 and then I can give it to the panelists? Yeah, I can be faster. Oh.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for your presentation. My question is straightforward because of my research area. I understand that this transition needs to be fair for everyone, but my question is, where are all the raw materials to produce all these energy products? How can you also have to look at it if you really want to do a fair transition and to assure that you outsource on the best way.
All right. Who wants to give like 1 minute answer to the two questions and so that you can all contribute? Who wants to start? One of you?
Thanks. Exactly. Let's just start with the first question, I suppose. Yeah, indeed, the money is there, solutions are there. It's a matter of access to finance, that's one thing. So, I mean, just related to energy communities, what I wanted to say still is that there's an issue of the available funding, where it is available in Europe, that it's often much too difficult for energy communities to tap into. The process is incredibly complex, administrative. That needs to be more low threshold. And there's currently several initiatives happening. On the European front, that's going to be the European Energy Communities Facility that is now being developed, that is going to provide these kind of funding, but also on the member state level, that is increasingly materializing. On a more global level, in generally in energy, I think it's a matter of financing and not only funding. So we see a lot of funding programs for different initiatives and projects, but also there's a need for the blending of public and private capital, and the need for local governments to be able to tap into this this pool of private finance, essentially. And yeah, we have different frameworks as ICLEI also to facilitate that. One of them being the TAP program, Transformative Action Pipeline, where these pipeline of bankable projects in cities is being created, and that is then pitched to investors. And so this matching between cities and private sector funders is being created. So yeah, so financing rather than funding. Yeah.
Tabaret or Wolfram, do you want to answer one of the two questions?
Yeah, maybe to the first one, it was said before, I think on one hand it's a matter, you said you are an expert in policy. I think you really need people who are experts in doing that. As we heard before, it is complex. We are running 50 European projects, and European projects are complex. So if you start for the first time, you probably won't get very far. But you need, if you want to do this on a long term, you need to start, you need to look for, and you need to have people who are dedicated to do so. I think on another side from the funding, obviously European Union funding is one opportunity, but I would really keep private funding very clearly on the list. So in my opinion, it makes a lot of sense for cities to write down the whole wish list, what would you do, and think strongly, okay, which of these things are the ones which I as a city have to fund, wherever I get the money from, and which can be done by private actors, in order to make sure that the euros that you put in the things are the ones that really only you can do. Otherwise, you might put in the euros, the public euros, in things that private ones would do, and then you're missing the public euros, which for the measures only the public ones can do. And I would like to close for the comment on raw materials. Obviously, raw materials is an issue, out of question. What I really like about the whole system of renewables, that we stop burning. Now we are using a lot of gas, a lot of petrol, a lot of coal. We take it out of the ground and we burn it away. So we have to go on digging. When we shift, for example, to battery electric vehicles, we need a lot of materials in order to build it. But once it's there, even if I use my car for 10, 15, 20 years, after 20 years, the mass, the material of the battery is exactly the same. So if I'm able to use it efficiently, to bring it in a second life application, to recycle it, I can close really a loop and reduce drastically the need of mining. At the beginning, I need to accelerate mining because I need more materials of a certain kind than I need today. On the other hand, other mining activities are going strongly down.
Thank you. Well, hard to add anything at this level. I will give it a shot, and I will start with the raw materials. And let me play with this phrase that you have all heard it. The age of stone didn't finish because of the lack of stones. I hope that the age of renewables doesn't finish because of the lack of materials. But what I believe, really need to start embracing is that integrated holistic thinking. We will not ever find one fit-for-all solution. We need to think about solutions that work in different contexts. And I think we just discussed a few of them. The idea of embedding life cycle identity in the way we define our processes or products, that's just one way in which we can start developing less concerns about where these materials come from. But there's another important fact. There's also that justice and equity element of where these materials come from. And I connect a little bit with the first question. And I come back with, it's very important that we embed that concept that Arthur said on justice. I mean, I think one of the problems that we have with the energy transition, and I hope this creates a further debate, is that the model is at times replicating what the fossil fuel industry had done. So if we are not capable of create an equitable and fair renewable energy transition that, yes, recognizes that there are losers and there will be winners, if we do not recognize that, if we don't understand that there will be impacted people, very hardly we will find the solutions and the actions that we need to empower this to be less affected. So I think this equity consideration, this idea of distribution, procedures, is very important. We need to make our citizens accountable, responsible, yes, but we also need to transfer the opportunities for them to interact in all these processes of transforming our society, our economic and energy systems. So.
Thank you, Tabara, and thank you to the two of you. I take my position of a facilitator to give just two thoughts on the two questions. To the first one, I think there's a huge, and looking at local authorities, there's a huge lack of staff. So, and by the way, I want to mention an initiative by several EU networks that is called, and you can Google it, Local Staff for Climate. So we're trying, and we have a manifesto that politicians and experts can sign, and we want to convey to the European Commission that there is a need to launch a big campaign and to help reskilling, but also, showing that working for local authority is good work. And actually also trying to find a way to increase the salaries, because we know, and particularly in some countries, that people working in public administration are very badly paid for what they are delivering. Second thing, on the raw materials, just to launch a concept, and I'm happy to discuss it with you during the coffee break. I think an answer to that is sufficiency. We had the pleasure to try and challenge the mayors, the politicians yesterday, to try to discuss this concept of sufficiency, which is different from efficiency. And I'm happy to discuss it with you, and I hope, and with everyone, because I think it's an answer to the question of raw materials. I thank very much the panelists, and think a big round of applause to them. Have a good coffee, and see you later today.
Thank you, gentlemen. I just wanted to tell you that our energy partner, Bepco, is waiting for you outside with a specialty coffee from Croitoria de Cafea, de aici din Brașov, from Brașov. Let's get back together at 12:30 sharp for the mobility panel, which would be as interesting as this one. Thank you.